Hello everybody, welcome to Dirty Air. I'm your host Alex Lambert, and let's talk about NASCAR at Richmond after Kevin passes Joey Logano and holds off Christopher Bell and Chris Buescher to get his second win of the year and is now a serious championship threat with only 2 races left until the playoffs start. So let's go ahead and get right on into it. First off, we got to talk about Kevin Harvick and the 4 team. I said last week in my video after their win at Michigan that this is the last team you want to give that shot of momentum to. The last team you want to give that boost of momentum to, that boost of energy to go and give a strong playoff run. I said they've been getting faster and faster every week. They got the win last week in Michigan. They got the win today at Richmond. That's 2 wins in a row for Harvick after a huge drought, a huge winless streak. These guys 3 weeks ago weren't even considered to be a playoff threat, not even make the 16-driver playoffs. Now, all of a sudden, I think you can consider them a championship threat, a Final Four threat for sure, as Kevin Harvick has now prevailed. He's been fast the last few weeks, finally got the win last week at Michigan, got the win today again at Richmond, was super fast today, wasn't really a strategic win. We saw strategy kind of fail for a lot of drivers like Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott. It didn't work out for the win. He might have got a decent finishing position, but didn't go by Kevin Harvick to get the win. But Harvick was able to pass Logano. Logano was really the dominant car of the day. The track temperatures changed a little bit. Looks like a little bit of rain was showing up on the radar. A lot of cloud cover. It was getting really dark there at Richmond. Definitely cooling the track temperature, cooling the track conditions. And we've seen at tracks, especially like Richmond, the shorter tracks and other tracks, when the track does get covered with cloud cover that heavy for that long of a period, you see kind of a shift. Logano was faster in the warmer conditions. That cloud cover continued to come over, continued to get heavier, it continued to get darker, and therefore Kevin Harvick was able to prevail, and all of a sudden Kevin Harvick was the fastest car in the final stage of the race, and Joey Logano was not. Joey Logano faded just a little bit. Logano could also have been running his stuff up a little bit. Also, many other things play into that equation. So Harvick does get his 60th career win, and like I said, sometimes with these older guys that have impressive wins, it is kind of cool to go through the stat sheet real quick. I do want to mention that this is Kevin Harvick's 4th win at Richmond. I believe his first one in almost 10 years, 9 years to be exact. First win since 2013 at Richmond. I believe that was a night race, and then of course 2 of those before that, all those at RCR. So this is his first win with Stewart-Haas Racing at Richmond, making it his 4th total at Richmond, and then of course his 60th career win, which ties him all-time 9th on the all-time win list with Kyle Busch right now. He's tied with Kyle Busch, my guy, with 60 career wins. So it is impressive to see. Obviously, last week got his 6th career win at Michigan. This week got another win today at Richmond, and he could pass Kyle Busch with the way things are going if he continues this hot streak. Let's go through the top 10 real quick. I have a whole lot to get into about the top 10. I already talked about your winner, Kevin Harvick, but Christopher Bell, man, he was catching Harvick at the end. It looked like he might have been able to get to him. Harvick obviously said he missed a shift a couple of times there, didn't shift the car, just kind of lost habit of shifting it coming on the front straightaway, I believe he said, there at the end of the race. But Christopher Bell was still catching him a little bit. I think if it had been maybe 5 laps or 10 laps longer, Bell would have been right there on him and could have gave him a run for his money there at the end potentially. And Christopher Bell's been fast at these types of racetracks. If you look, you go back to St. Louis, he had a decent run. You go back to a track like New Hampshire, which is probably the closest thing we can compare this to. Won at New Hampshire, has run really fast in New Hampshire in the past, has run really well at Richmond itself in the past. So obviously at these types of racetracks, Christopher Bell does have a lot of speed, just tend to show a lot of speed. And he's been showing a lot more speed the last few weeks. I mean, contending for wins more often. He's obviously been fast all year with top 10s and top 5s, but now contending for the win on a regular basis. The 20 team of Christopher Bell has might be one of the top guys, if not the top guy, out of the 4 Joe Gibbs Racing Toyotas right now. Chris Buescher, another one of those guys that was running Harvick down at the end, just didn't quite have enough for Harvick. I think Harvick was kind of on cruise control at the end while Chris Buescher was running everything he had, which is why he was able to catch him there for a little bit. Chris Buescher trying to obviously win and get in for the playoffs for Brad Keselowski's new RFK team. Keselowski, he was having a pretty decent run early on, then something happened to him. He started fading quickly. But his teammate, Chris Buescher, obviously had a decent run finishing 3rd. Chris Buescher's been another one of those drivers. You see the progress from the beginning of the year, and he said in his post-race interview he feels like ever since the Dover race they've been showing better results. And I guess that's true if you go back and look at the past few finishes. Got a top 3 at the road courses the last few weeks, Sonoma. And then, of course, did decent in the road course race at Indy. and has run fairly well the last few weeks. Could be your threat. If you have a threat to get that 16th different winner, it definitely could be Chris Buescher. You have Denny Hamlin, who finished 4th today. Obviously, the defending winner of the race going into today. Tried a bit of a strategy move, just didn't quite work out for him. Ended up finishing 4th. Had a fast car, but did get a 4th place finish. Chase Elliott really wasn't a 5th place car. It was not a top 5 car, or maybe not even a top 10 car. Was able to capitalize on the strategy to get a 5th place position finish, which he obviously in his post-race interview said he was pretty, proud of to get a 5th place finish, but they do need to, find some improving key points so they can get better finishes going into the playoffs. Obviously, this is probably one of those tracks you could compare to Phoenix, kind of flat, a little bit shorter, so you could compare this to the championship race. Joey Logano was really fast. He was the dominant car. It looked like this was his race to win, and then, like I said, you had that cloud cover to come over the track, and then the longer the runs got, it seems like his car faded. Logano took the lead early on in this race, led 222 laps. That's more than half the event. And then Harvick was just way faster. Had a great battle with Harvick in the final stage, and then ultimately Harvick was able to get by him at the end of this race. And then other guys got by him as well. I mean, Christopher Bell showed he was faster. Chris Buescher showed he was faster at the end. And he ended up getting a 6th place finish. So that's really disappointing for Joey Logano, who was pretty much the favorite to win this race all day long. He dominated this thing, and then to get a 6th place finish is certainly not very good. Martin Truex Jr. was a lap down at one point, had a pretty rough day, was able to come back up, get a top 10, finish 7th for Martin Truex Jr. He's racing Ryan Blaney for that last playoff spot, and he lost a few points today with the way stages and all that played out, as I believe he was a lap down coming to the end of stage 2, but was able to get that lap back right at the end of stage 2, right before the caution flew for that. Eric Almirola, another guy that's kind of fast at these types of flatter, shorter racetracks. Obviously the win last week the win last year at New Hampshire, a similar racetrack, and tends to run up front at these more low speed racetracks. Kyle Busch, first top 10. Kyle Busch's first top 10 in a while. I believe this is his first top 10 since before Sonoma. So his first top 10 in 8 races, I believe. It's been 9 races to this race since he got his last top 10. So that's really frustrating for him, but he finally got that top 10. Breaks the bad streak, kinda. He did get caught up in a wreck. I do want to spend a second on Kyle Busch because it is a bit frustrating to watch. I feel like Kyle Busch is one of those guys that got kind of knocked around today. I mean, he said in his post-race interview he got Chastain. You kind of see him get run up in there. Chastain. Look, did Kyle Busch come down a little bit? Yeah, maybe, but this is a situation where you're three wide at a short track at Richmond. This is a time to let off the gas just for a second. You see other drivers let off the gas. I think this was an instance where it wasn't all Chastain's fault, but with Chastain's reputation, obviously they're all going to blame him, whether it was his fault or not, because of his reputation so far this year. And it seems like it's kind of a popular thing to blame Chastain now. So obviously Chastain's going to get blamed for that, especially by the Joe Gibbs guys. But it did take out Kyle Busch. One of those instances, man. It's not for the win. It's not for an important playoff point or position. So I think this is a moment where Chastain probably could have just let off the gas. But Chastain's going to be Chastain. It did hurt Busch's day a little bit. Maybe Busch shouldn't have came down as much on him. You can argue that. It depends on who you like the most. So that's who you're going to argue for in that situation. Obviously, I like Kyle Busch a little bit better than Chastain. So I'm going to say it was Chastain's fault in that instance. But then you see Ryan Blaney. I mean, Ryan Blaney got into him there. Kyle Busch didn't get him back, and then of course you had the instance with Ty Gibbs, and a fourth career start for Ty Gibbs. He actually ended up having an engine failure after this. He's running into it with Kyle Busch. I mean, I think Kyle's kind of looked like a ping pong ball today. I mean, I think Kyle Busch should have maybe tried to retaliate a couple of these guys. I'm not saying wreck them, but why didn't you bump Ty Gibbs back pretty hard? Why didn't you bump Ryan Blaney back? Why didn't you try to bump Chastain back out the way? Seems like Kyle Busch was acting kind of soft today on the racetrack. I think it was a time maybe to run them a little hard, get those guys back if you're Kyle Busch, because you're kind of setting a tone going in the playoffs. Hey, you can just run over me. That's just kind of how I see it as a fan, obviously. So we'll have to see how that goes moving forward, and if he does want to be a little bit more aggressive in the future. Let's go, I do want to talk about your 10th place guy real quick, Ryan Blaney, who's going for the playoff points here. Let's go into the playoffs. Let's look at the playoffs. A 10th place finish for Ryan Blaney, but Blaney got those stage points. So even though Martin Truex Jr. Finished better than him, Blaney was finished way better in the stages, now 26 points ahead of Martin Truex Jr. That's still just one race. I mean, Ryan Blaney doesn't finish a race. Ryan Blaney has a flat tire at the end of a race, gets wrecked out, gets caught up in somebody else's mess. Ryan Blaney could easily lose that spot. Not to mention 2 races left. Watkins Glen, a road course where we see Chris Buescher super fast at, which is obviously a point of conversation. He could get a win, knock that 16th guy out, and put him in 17th. Real dangerous spot right now for Ryan Blaney as far as making the playoffs. Not only Watkins Glen next week, you have Daytona coming up. Daytona, that's a big deal. That's a big racetrack that could definitely produce a surprise winner. You look at guys like Brad Keselowski, who runs well at those tracks. Definitely really scary situation right now for Ryan Blaney in the 12 car, only 26 points above. Not only is he afraid of Truex getting ahead of him in the points if he has a bad day, there could be another winner. I mean, you still have Eric Almirola. You still have Bubba Wallace, who's been running fast the last few weeks. You still have Chris Buescher, who can knock you below the cut line. And then you have that wild card at Daytona where you don't know what will happen. So we'll have to see what happens with these next 2 races. If we do get a 16th or 17th different winner, we have 2 weeks to get that 17th different winner. It'll be interesting to see if that does end up happening. Now, I show Kurt Busch with the win on this grid. Let's switch over to another grid just real quick. I'm going to show this just this week. I want to just put it up here for 1 second. These are how many points these guys have above Kurt Busch. So if Kurt Busch does come back next week, this obviously comes back into play. It looks like if you get a 16th or 17th different winner, if you have a 17th different winner, Kurt Busch will be the first out. But these are the points. If Kurt Busch does come back next week, you have Chase Briscoe 64 points above, and Austin Cindric 71 above, Daniel Suarez 89 above, and then Alex Bowman 107 above. So I think everybody on this list besides Kurt Busch is most likely safe 100%. Except, of course, if Chase Briscoe has a bad day, Kurt Busch comes back, who knows? But I think most of the guys on this list that I'm showing you right now is good and will be able to go through the playoffs or go through the rest of the next 2 races without any major issues. Kurt Busch is really the only one on the hot seat. If you get a 17th different winner, Kurt Busch would be the one knocked out. We'll have to see if you get that 17th different winner, obviously going into the next 2 races. Watkins Glen next week. Watkins Glen, a road course race, an interesting race. Be interested to see what does happen at Watkins Glen. Be interesting to see if we can get that surprise winner. Obviously, Chris Buescher running pretty well. Bubba Wallace had a decent run at the road course. Eric Almirola, those guys you have to look at to potentially get that road course win. And even Martin Truex Jr. is a threat right now to knock Ryan Blaney out. So it'll be interesting to see next week at Watkins Glen. Exciting race. I think we only have 2 more road courses left for the entire season. So it'll be interesting to see what does happen at those 2 races. And that's it. That's really all there is to talk about after a really fun, really exciting day at Richmond today for the race. Obviously, tune into Dirty Air, like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this video, and then tune into Dirty Air next week after NASCAR at Watkins Glen, and it should be exciting. And of course, about Kyle Busch getting Chastain today. Let's get rowdy.